This is me logging in to my wiped UIM, and it was completely avoidable, and it is definitely going to be a halt on my quest cape progress as I was rushing it. So before we get into that, let's start at night at the theater. The goal was simple: keep rushing the quest cape on the Ultimate Ironman. And at this point, the quest was starting to get harder, and the count was starting to really feel the lack of gear, supplies, and inventory space. Night at the Theater was next, and honestly, I thought it was going to be easy since I have experience with Theater of Blood, but then I even got to the very beginning of Hespori fight. Hespori is not supposed to be hard, I've done it countless of times, but when you show up with almost no food, cheap supplies, and armor with basically no magic defense, suddenly this plant starts looking like an actual boss. The first attempt, I brought around 4 to 5 pieces of food, and he immediately started farming me instead, which I ended up having to teleport out. Second attempt, I came back with better food, some karambwans, and it still was not enough because I only had 7 pieces. I got him down to basically 1 more hit, and I was at 2 HP with 1 more hit. And when his attack was coming, I was about like 1 tick off, and I knew that I had to teleport out, unfortunately. So for my third attempt, at this point, I decided to get potions. So I went to the Warriors Guild, got myself attack, strength, and defense. I dropped them real quick and went back to the fight, and I got him down 2 hits. And once again, I had to teleport out. Okay, my 5th attempt, this one was the dumbest. As I was walking there, the gas took 1 food away from me. As I got closer, I got double teamed by 2 gas, 3 food out. I decided to drop all my food and kind of raged here, took off all my armor and decided to death pile. Okay, re-geared, got all my food ready. I came back fully prepared, inventory stacked with food, and I freaking forgot the axe. So I had to leave again. Annoying. And after all that, I came back 1 more time and finally killed Hespori. But even with the full of inventory, I only had 4 pieces of food left. This entire disaster was only 3 minutes of screen time, but gameplay took around 2 hours. But it felt like a full progression just for this freaking Hespori. And with Hespori finally dead, the next step was the real ending of Night of the Theater. I had to complete a Theater of Blood run. And for some reason, I thought, let's go ahead and try this as solo. Even with the Hespori being a problem, I still thought I can take it on alone. So I walked into the maiden room with a bone crossbow and earth spells, thinking I could just figure it out and sustain with 4 pieces of food. And very quickly I realized it did not bring enough runes, or I should say I didn't want to waste the runes. I had no real supplies, no potions, and no way this was going anywhere. The kill was, my damage overall was super slow. So I died, and then I spawned back with med packs, and that was the first sign that this quest was going to be way longer than I expected, or even is it even possible. Once I made it to Bloat's room, I pretty much left immediately. At this point, I realized this solo run was going to take forever. My damage was terrible, and even somehow, if I even got through Bloat, Nyla was going to be a massive time sink. And even if I made it through the Nylos, I still had to deal with Verzek, which is the hardest part of the whole run in general. So instead of burning through my time and possibly dying, it's better that I just left. That is when I decided to bring my main account and try playing both at the exact same time. Maiden was easier this time, and on the Ultimate Ironman, I basically just stood there and killed the blood spheres while the main focused the blood nails that heal her. It was not clean, but it worked. Then we got back to Bloat. I sent my main account in first to wake him up and start the room. Then on the Ultimate Ironman, I walked in a little too early and immediately took damage for the both of us. That's when I realized playing 2 accounts at the same time during Theater of the Blood is actually horrible. So I tried to make it simple. I would run away early on the Ultimate Ironman before Bloat woke up, then leave with my main and have the UIM follow my max account around the room. It kind of worked until it didn't because I ended up dying by feet. But my max account did go ahead and finish it. And as we got to the Nyla room, unfortunately something did pop up at this moment, so I had to leave again. So this is my second failed attempt. And on the third attempt, I got help. The recording was basically black screen the whole time on accident because I switched a setting, and my friends did carry me through the run. So these were not random players. These are someone who basically live at the Theater of Blood, and they're probably one of the best players to do a night of the theater runs. They do speed runs, duo TOBs and stuff. So they really enjoy this content, and basically, I'm not gonna lie, I got carried the whole way there. And fortunately for them, it made this part of the quest very smooth. And I actually left without getting any of the experience because I completely forgot. And actually, till this day, I still need to go do that. The run was so fast, I even got combat achievement tasks like master ones. You can see at the bottom of the screen. I was basically getting rewarded for existing. After all that, Night of Theater was finally completed, and like usual, I immediately jumped into the next quest to see what I needed. The next one was Dragon Slayer 2, which was a problem because I had almost nothing ready for it. For Dragon Slayer 2, I needed a safer way to fight dragons. My best crossbow was still a bone crossbow, and even though I had a magic short bow, I could not really rely on that because I needed dragonfire protection. I did not have anti-fire potions, and I did not have a rune crossbow, which is essential for the quest. So before I could really even start Dragon Slayer 2, I had to prep the account for that. And that meant going somewhere I had not gone yet on the Ultimate Ironman, which was the wilderness. This was my first real wilderness trip on the account, and the plan was simple. Death pile my stuff, gear up in mystics, take around 500 death runes, an air staff, and go kill crazy archaeologists for a rune crossbow. And honestly, I was excited because wilderness content in general is some of my favorite content in the game. But on the UIM, it does feel way different. I did spend about 30 minutes killing crazy archaeologists. I got some random loot, but nothing that actually solved my problem. The best drop was around 150 cannonballs and 12 onyx bolt tips. No rune crossbow. Then I ran out of death runes, and at the point, I didn't want to do another 30 minutes in the wilderness any longer than I had to. After that failed, I checked my stats and realized I was already close to the fletching level needed to make my own rune crossbow. So instead of forcing the wilderness grind, I changed plans. I went to do Veil of Totems and pushed my fletching from 69 to 72 pretty quickly. And during that grind, I accidentally claimed some rewards, so I had about 1200 Veil offerings to open. I rummaged through all of them, but honestly, I did not get anything too crazy, no collection logs. And I kept a few seeds, some anima bark, and one god egg, but most of it got dropped. Then I had a farming detour. The tree seeds were actually useful, so I went and planted those right away. At this point, the account was slowly getting prepared for Dragon Slayer 2, but it still felt like every small upgrade I did do needed a couple extra steps. And that is basically the whole theme of this account is there's always some type of step I need to do for a quest. Then, while I was at work, I was doing some mobile prep during one of my breaks. I do not have footage for this part, but I went to kill steel dragons for runite limbs, and somehow I got them on the 4th kill, which was huge. So as soon as I got them, I left immediately. Now I could finally make the rune crossbow. As I made the rune crossbow at work, I logged out, got home, ready to actually start Dragon Slayer 2. I was hyped, I had the crossbow, I had the plan. Then I looked at my account and realized something obvious. I had no good bolts, or I should say I had no bolts in general. So even after finally making the rune crossbow, I was still not fully ready. At this time, the only real option I could think of was doing Soul Wars. But before doing that, I decided just to start Dragon Slayer 2 real quick. And then I had to do my death bank and organize my whole inventory. And this is where I need you to pay attention, because this is where things start to go a little south. I went to Nightmare to pick up my death bank, and this was my 3rd return, right? I have everything in my loot bag, and this is the last trip. I click take all, but if you look at my inventory, not everything gets picked up. I even had one free inventory spot open. The game did not pick up my Derox body or my Torag's helmet, and at that time, I thought higher value items would come first by clicking the button, but that is not how it works. It was based on order. So without realizing it, I left some items behind. I lost my magic short bow from a clue scroll, my broad arrows, my amulet of strength, and my 2 borrows items. The worst part is I had no idea it even happened. I clicked take all, assumed I had everything, and moved on. And when I went to Death Pile again and I kept playing like everything was fine, it was not until about an hour and a half later when getting my gear back that I realized I was missing my items. And at first I had no idea what had happened, and it finally clicked. I death piled, but I still had some items in the storage. And that was the first real mistake that started costing the account. And the worst part about the death pile mistake is why I death piled in the first place. In the quest helper says I needed over 20 inventory spaces for the puzzle section, but in reality I did not. I could have simply just ran back and forth, picking up puzzle pieces, so I lost all the gear because I death piled for something I did not even need to death pile for, which sucked. So I continued Dragon Slayer 2, and then I immediately hit another problem. I freaking needed a cat speaking amulet, and obviously I threw that away a long time ago. And I also did not have a cat anymore because I sacrificed it for death runes. So now the quest was completely stopped because I needed a cat again. That meant I had to buy a kitten and wait at least 4 hours for it to grow. And while I was at work, I just kept feeding the kitten on mobile until it finally grew to an adult. And once I got home, I took the cat to the Sphinx and got my cat speaking amulet back. And this time I put my cat in my house, so now I permanently have a cat because I'm not letting death runes ruin my life again. After all that, I continued the quest just to speak to Bob. Then the quest sent me back to the troll maze to get a goutweed again. And since I cannot store it, I had to go back all the way just to grab it. And at this point, Dragon Slayer 2 was not even hard yet. It was just annoying. Then I got to the first real boss, Robert the Strong. And he definitely was strong. It is literally in his name because when I went in with a DDS thinking I could spec him down, I was not doing enough damage at all. He started destroying me and went through my food almost instantly. I barely made it to the pillar, and if I was one tick later, I probably would have died right there. So then I ran. After that, I found out he was weak to crush, so I went and spent money on the dragon mace, and once I came back with the dragon mace, that damage was way better. But he was still out DPSing me. So the solution was not really skill, it was food. I death piled again just for this fight so I can bring more supplies and actually survive long enough to kill him. After Robert the Strong, I realized another annoying problem. I needed a dragonstone, and of course I had already dropped mine in the past, so now I had to go fix that too. I spent around 30 minutes catching magpie implings until I got a key half. Fortunately, I still had the other half, so I made a crystal key, opened the chest, and got the dragonstone. That stone that I needed finally was able to make a locator orb, and that was actually huge for the account. For a normal account, this is just a quest item, but for a UIM, this thing is massive because it makes future death piles way faster and easier. So even though getting there was annoying, this was a big upgrade. Then it was finally time for Vorkath. I came prepared, or at least I thought I did. The plan was to range him with broad bolts, but once the fight started, I realized I was barely hitting. It was just zeros, ones, and more zeros. So I teleported out and changed the plan. The next attempt, I came back with my arcane blade and decided to melee him instead and poke him. And that was immediately way better. I was actually doing damage now. The problem was I still did not have enough food to sustain the fight. So even though the melee was a right call for my account, I still had to teleport out again. The third attempt, I came back fully prepared, or at least I thought I was fully prepared. Then Vorkath spawned a little zombie dragon that explodes on you, and I realized I forgot my rune pouch. I had no body runes in it. So I could not cast Crumble Undead, and I had to teleport immediately and waste the whole trip. I ran back right away, this time with the runes and full inventory of food, and that was a trick. Full food inventory, melee setup, Crumble Undead ready. This time I finally killed Borkath. Now Dragon Slayer 2 could actually continue. After that, I collected the rest of the pieces and finally made the full key. That meant I was officially moving into the final boss section. So I death piled again, prepped for the fight, and decided to test it with my broad bolts. And this is where things got very ugly. As soon as I got into the fight and started dealing with the black dragon, I got one shot by Galvek. I completely forgot about the fireball, so I died immediately. That was not even a real attempt. That was just me walking in and getting deleted. I jumped right back into it though, and this time I remember the fireball. I made it past the early dragons, but the poison dragon did a lot of damage. Then when the rune dragon came out, it started dominating me. At one point, I was at 2 HP and the rune dragon hit a 1. If it hit a 2, I was dead, and I skipped 1 HP and 4 prayer. I geared up, came back, entered the fight again, and immediately died to Galvek again. At this point, the quest was disrespecting me, so what did I do? I ran it back again. This time, I fought all the way through the dragons and made it to Galvek. By the time I got there, I only had 1 piece of food left. Then I looked at my inventory and realized I need to get out of here. So as soon as I was leaving, he teleported me back towards him. And then I ended up getting away by quick escaping. I came back with a full inventory ready for a real attempt at Galvek, and then freaking died to the bombs because I literally walked into one. That one was my fault completely. At that point, I was annoyed and I knew I was going to take more preparation, so I stopped forcing it. I needed better bolts. This is when I went to Soul Wars. I joined a clan and they helped a lot. I AFK'd a good amount at work, and by the end of the day, I had 540 zeal points. The plan was not to spend it all at once because the supply crates are 30 points each, and I wanted to save some of the points for future wilderness content, especially because blighted supplies are going to be useful later. So I bought 1 crate, and somehow on the first tray I got my adamant bolts, which was huge. Now that I had my adamant bolts, I needed to turn them into actual bossing bolts. So the next step was mining rubies and diamonds, cutting them and attaching them, then enchanting the bolts. Because apparently even getting bolts on this account has to be a full quest line attached to it. And now we are finally back to the clip from the beginning. I logged in and my count was dead. I ran back to Taverley Dungeon, and this is where I realized what happened. I decided to be dumb and AFK Slayer while my stuff was deathbanked at Hespori. At this time, I was doing bingo on my main account, fighting the Huey boss, and I was not paying attention on the UIM, and the black demon freaking killed me. Pulled me out or something, and I died. Fortunately, I did keep important items. I still had my rune crossbow, my bolts that I created, and mixed d'hide I just made, and all the main quest related items to complete Dragon Slayer 2. Basically what you see on screen is literally what I had left. So I did not lose everything, but I lost a lot. The main thing that hurt was losing was the Barrows items. The only Barrows piece I had left now was the Darok's plate body, and I lost 736 doses of prayer potions. I lost a couple thousand steel cannonballs, hundreds of magic logs, steel bars, herbs, and a bunch of supplies I had been saving. My super attack, strength, and defense potions are now gone. Some of the super resource I just made are gone. And another big one is I lost more than 10,000 death runes, which I've been saving up for a long time. And mainly I wanted to use these for ancient spells like blood to sustain fights in the future, and it was all gone. But at this point, I just sat there and was thinking about what I was going to do next. And Honestly, I wasn't even mad. It was more like, okay, they say this happens to every ultimate Ironman. I'm glad it happened now. It did suck, but I was not going to stop the account. The good thing was the gear I was wearing was already the gear I planned to use for Dragon Slayer 2. The bad thing was I basically lost all supplies I wanted for the fight. No prayer potion stack, no super defense, no ranging potions I just got from the Terran's lair by killing zombies, and no backup resources. The wipe did not kill the count, but it made the next boss way harder than it should be. Since my inventory was already freed up, I decided to make even more space. I still had some dark totems, so I went to use them at Skatizo, and before that I killed Chaos Druids and Artie to rebuild a few prayer potions. The first kill was rough. It was low health, fighting the little demons, and barely got through it with around 17 HP left. And unfortunately, nothing good came out of it. I decided to do a second attempt. This one was actually harder. I ran out of prayer completely, barely got through it, and again, nothing crazy, just some high alks. But the good news was my death pile was smaller now, and I had more room. I still had some junk I was holding on to, like a few totem pieces, some seeds, and thankfully, I didn't lose my dragon defender because that one would probably be the worst. Overall, I kind of feel free, so this is going to allow me to help me just manage my inventory significantly better. After the wipe, I still went back into Dragon Slayer 2. I re-geared, rebuilt what supplies I could, and this time I had the enchanted bolts ready, and that made a huge difference. The ruby bolts started proccing constantly, and Galvek was actually taking a lot of damage now. Phase 1 went down pretty quick, Phase 2 went down pretty quick, but then Phase 3 showed up and it started hitting me like a truck. By the time I got to Phase 4, I had 0 food left. I still had prayer potions, so I was okay there, but I made a stupid mistake. I stood still, Galvek used his earth attack, stunned me, and then sent out the fireball. I teleported out about 3 ticks before it would have hit me. That was not a choice anymore, so I was forced to teleport out, so that was a failed attempt. The next attempt, I came back, and then I died to the fireball almost immediately because I did not know what tile I was supposed to stand on when he threw it in the air, and I got deleted.
Oh, bro!
That was not even a real attempt. At that point, I was just annoyed, so I just took a break. So for my break, the same friends who carried me through the night at the theater earlier were nice enough to help me again. They carried me through Theater the Blood runs so I could get points and buy supplies. The plan was to get Saradomin Brews and Super Restores and any hard food for Galvek. After 2 runs, I technically had enough, but they wanted to make sure I was fully prepared, so they did 3 runs for me. That gave me 6 full Saradomin Brews, 2 Super Restores, 3 Sharks, and I went to go buy some Crombons, and then I got a ranging potion for the final fight. This time I came back properly prepared. Phase 1, I used around 3 doses of Sarah Brews. Phase 2, I used about another full brew. And then Phase 3 still hit hard, but I changed my prayer to range this time, and I had even more supplies. By the time I reached Phase 4, I was in a way better position than before. I still had 9 doses of Sarah Brews, 3 restores, and 6 pieces of combo food left. Now I just had to not do anything stupid. For the last phase, I basically played Ring Around the Rosie with Galvek. I made sure I never stood still too long. I kept moving, kept attacking, and avoided giving him a free chance to one-shot me. By the end, I was almost out of supplies again. I had 3 doses of Sarah Brew left. Then, finally, I hit a 4 and Galvek went down. Dragon Slayer 2 was finally completed. This was quite long. The actual fights probably took around 3 hours total because of all the attempts and resets. But with all the preparation, this probably took to almost 20 hours. The cat alone added about 4 hours of waiting. Then there was the Rune Crossbow grind, the fletching, the steel dragons, the soul wars, the mining gems, the making the bolts, rebuilding after the wipe, the crazy archaeologist, and getting carried for supplies. So there was a significant amount of preparation just for this quest. And the fight was only part of it, but the preparation honestly was the real boss, as it's what got me wiped. And after Galvek, I finally got the Dragon Slayer 2 rewards. I got huge experience drops, including smithing level and a thieving level. Then I went to speak to Ellen for the 100,000 experience reward. I put all of it into magic because that is a skill I won't hire for the account later. And after everything that's happened, this was a massive unlock. This quest was definitely not doable without the friends who helped me, especially after the wipe. Losing all of the supplies hurt, but that is kind of the point of this account. Bad things are going to happen, mistakes are going to happen, but you all should know me by now. As soon as Dragon Slayer 2 was done, I immediately went to the next quest. Next episode, we're starting Secrets of the North, and after that, we're getting closer to the quest cape. Thank you all for watching.